February 19th, 2026. The Essential of Buddha Dhamma, translated and edited by Bruce Evans. We're in chapter 9. The morality factors of the Majjhima Patipata. We're going to speak on right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Chapter 8 was on right view and right thought. Now, right speech, right action, and right livelihood are on the levels of morality, sila, so they will be here dealt with together according to the evidence and the text definitions appear along the lines of the following example. First one, Bhikkhus. What is right speech? Just this is right speech. Musavata Veramani. Intentionally refraining from false speech. Bhiksunaya Vachaya Veramani. Intentionally refraining from malicious telling lies or tale-bearing, telling stories. Parusaya Vachaya Veramani. Intentionally refraining from coarse speech. Sampaha Palapa Veramani. Intentionally refraining from frivolous chatter or gossip or talking that is unnecessary. Second, Bhikkhus, what is right action? Just this is right actions. Bani Dipata Veramani. Intentionally refraining from taking life. Atitatana Veramani. Intentionally refraining from taking things not given. Kami Sumichachara Veramani. Intentionally refraining from sexual misconduct. Bhikkhus, what is right livelihood? Just this is right livelihood. A noble disciple gives up wrong livelihood and lives by right livelihood. Now, in addition, there are definitions that extinguish into the mundane and transcendent levels. The mundane conscious levels is defined on the same way as given above. The supra-conscious level, or subconscious, is transcendent level. It's explained as follows. Right speech that is transcendent, the ceasing and refraining, the total abstention, the intention to abstain from the four forms of verbal misconduct by ones whose mind is noble, whose mind is free from outflows of asavas, in whom the path has converged, who is developed in the path. Right action that is transcendent, the ceasing, the refraining, the total abstention, intentionally abstaining from the three forms of bodily misconduct by ones whose mind is noble. Right livelihood that is transcendent, the ceasing, the refraining, the total abstention, intentionally abstaining from wrong livelihood of whose mind is noble. Sila, morality, as the core tenets of basic conduct. From these main definitions as given by Gautama Buddha, which is the central core of the system of moral training known as the training of the higher conduct, Ati Sila Sikha. The Buddha Dhamma enlarges on the teachings with practices the principles of conduct to produce practical results on the individual and social levels. These begin with the teaching in line of conduct that corresponds with the factors of path known as Kammapata, the course of action. The code of basic moral conduct for all people known as the 5 precepts. For practical implementation, the teachings can be expanded in indefinite and pseudo-specific people, times, places, and other environmental factors. Here, however, it is significant to simply show the central principles to give an overall understanding. As for various practical application, these must be left up to each individual to seek out for him or herself according to the character, form of livelihood, and needs. In regard to practical application of the teaching, apart from consideration of character, time, place, and specific occasions, the main principle is status or form of livelihood. In this respect, different precepts or systems of practice have been laid down for householders and for renunciants. Students of morality, sila, should therefore understand the principles, essential meanings, and most importantly, objectives of those precepts and principles, both in terms and practical details which differ, and the overall highest level, which one and the same before they can be said to have correct understanding and practice. These morality path factors are broken down into principles of conduct leading to the results on the practical level. The following examples has corresponding factors and expands on each of the factors of the path, except that it places bodily deeds, kaya kamma, corresponding to right actions, before verbal deeds, vacha kamma, corresponding to right speech. It is known variously as the courses of skillful action, kusala kamma pata, types of good conduct, sukcharita, cleanliness of the body and speech and mind, and the qualities of actions. Illustrating story goes, when Gautama Buddha was sitting at the town of Pavi in Bharat, the mango grove of Kunda Kamma Putra, Kunda approached him, Gautama Buddha, to discuss the purification rituals, Sochiya Kamma. Kunda stated that he was an adherent of the teachings on the purification rituals of one of the Hindu Brahmins who carried a gold or wreaths of flowers and seaweeds, worshiped the fire, and observed the ritual of going down to the river. The teaching of these Hindus, these Brahmins, was that every day in the morning, on the rise from one's bed, one would touch the earth. If one did not touch the earth, one was to touch fresh cow dung, or green grass, or worship the fire, Agni, or raise one hand in salutation to the sun, Agni, or failing that, to go down to the water a full 3 times in the evening. Gautama Buddha answered that while the methods for purification stipulated by these Hindu Brahmins was one way of purification, purification in the noble disciples was different. He went on to say that one who was endowed with the 10 course of unskillful actions, killing living beings, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, malicious tale-bearing, abusive speech, frivolous speech, harboring greed, enmity, and wrong view, had impurities in body, in speech, and in mind. Whether such a person arising early in the morning were to touch the earth or not, or to touch cow dung or not, or to worship the fire, Agni, or to salute the sun, Agni, or not, the person was still impure, because the course of unskillful actions are impure in themselves, and also the cause of impurity. Then Gautama Buddha taught the 10 courses of purifying skillful action, grouped as 3 purifiers of the body, 4 purifiers of speech, and 3 purifiers of the mind. The 3 purifiers of the bodies are as follows. Total abstaining from taking life, ba ni di pa ta, laying down the rod, laying down the weapon, being possessed of shame, possessed of goodwill, disposed to helping all beings. Totally abstaining from taking things not given, ati ta ta na, not taking any possession or object belonging to another, be in the town or in the forest, which the owner has not given with the action of death. Third, totally abstaining from sexual misconduct, ga mi su mi cha cha ra, not violating women under the protection of their mothers, under the protection of their fathers, under the protection of the older or younger brothers, under the protection of their older or younger sisters, under the protection of relatives, under the protection of the Dhamma, protected by the law, or women who are married or who are off limits, including those who are engaged. The four purifiers of speech have the following requirements. Emphasis on having the four following requirements. Total abstaining from false speech, musavata. When in a council, at a meeting, or amongst a circle of relatives, in the assembly, or in the presence of a royal family, if someone is called to witness with the invitation, please, sir, tell us what you know. Not knowing, he says he does not know. Not have seen, he said he did not see. Knowing, he said he knows. Having seen, he said he saw. Such practitioners are not intentional speakers of falsehood, either on their own account or on the account of others, or on the account of any material gain whatsoever. Totally abstaining from malicious talebearing, bi sunna vacha. Such practitioners are not the kind to listen to this person's words and then inform that person in order to hurt this person, or to listen to that person's words and then inform this person in order to hurt that person. They are conciliators of the discordant. They encourage harmony. They like harmony. They delight in harmony. They are content with harmony, and they like to speak words that are conducive to harmony. Totally abstaining from coarse speech, barusa vacha, speaking only speech that is not harmful, is pleasant to the ear, endearing, engaging, polite, pleasing to many, praised by the many. Totally abstaining from frivolous speech, sampapalapa, speaking at the right time, speaking the truth, speaking meaningfully, atta, speaking the principle, dhamma, speaking with discipline, vinaya. They say things that are well-founded, authenticated, within reason, and useful at an appropriate time. Finally, 3 purifiers of the mind, consistent of non-covetousness, anabhaja, non-enmity, apyapata, and right view, samadhi. These 3 factors are gleaned from the first 2 factors of the path, samadhi and sammasankappa, right view and right thought. So the passages dealing with them are not discussed here. If one who is endowed with these 10 courses of skillful actions have arisen in the morning, touches the earth, one is pure. If one does not have touched the earth, one is pure. If one raises one's hands in salutations to Agni, the sun, one is pure. If one does not raise one's hands in salutations to the sun Agni, one is pure. Because these 10 courses of skillful actions are in themselves pure and conducive to purity. I would like to give an example of how the meaning of sila in the practical form may differ in accordance with different situations. When taking of a man who has gone forth as a mendicant, a Buddhist mendicant, a Buddhist bhikkhu, not only are some of the precepts changed and others added, but some of those precepts that are held in common are also interpreted differently. Compare the abstention from stealing, atitana, and lying, mutsavata, described below for bhikkhu, with one given in the 10 course of skillful action given above. He gives up atitana, totally abstaining from taking things that are not given, taking only things that are given, aspiring only to those things that are given. He is not a thief. He is pure. He gives up musavata, totally abstaining from false speech, speaking only the truth, maintaining truth. He is honest, trustworthy, does not deceive the world. And an important observation to be made here is that the expanded explanations of these morality path factors usually come in 2 parts. The first part dealing with abstention from bad actions, and the second dealing with performance of good actions. In brief, the beginning part is the negative form, abstaining from taking what is not given. When the second part is the positive form, taking only what is given. This is a general characteristics of Buddhist teachings, which tend to use paired instructions containing both negative and positive statements together. As in the principle to give up evil and practice good, taking up of evil as the starting point and continued cultivation of the good can be expanded on indefinitely. And it's not limited to the examples given in the explanation of the factors of path. The example in the precept of abstaining from taking what is not given and the explanation of the practice of cultivational aspect is not expanded upon. But there is already a clear teaching in giving dana, generosity, which is one of the Buddhism's core teachings. Now, that's from page 503 to 508. Theistic and natural order forms of sila, 509. Page 509. Some Western scholars have criticized Buddhism as being negative, a teaching that aims only for the renunciation of evil action, but not encourage Buddhists to make any effort for cultivating goodness. Some see Buddhist teaching as subjective and ethics of thoughts, a reclusive or passive teaching, making Buddhists content with simply giving up evil action and being careful to avoid situations that might lead to sin, and not taking any interest in helping others through dedicated actions to free them from suffering and create true benefit and happiness. These scholars state that even in the teachings of metta and karuna, goodwill and compassion, Buddhism merely supports the mental activities of establishing an attitude of goodwill and spreading it outward. They cite sections in the Tipitaka, the Pali Canon, to support their view, such as following definitions of right action for the path factors. They cited passages of Venerable Sariputra. Venerable Sariputra says, "And what, Venerable Sir, is right action? Giving up killing, giving up taking what is not given, Giving up sexual misconduct, this reverend serves its right actions. Students who understand the practical meaning of these path factors as explained so far will immediately see that if the writers of these criticisms were acting with good intentions, then their conclusion must have a base on an incomplete understanding of Buddhism. It can clearly be seen that the system of morality in the path is not merely negative, passive, subjective, or an ethics of thoughts. The reason that the definitions of morality path factors are presented in a negative form can be briefly stated in 8 points as follows. The first point why it's stated in a negative form is morality as part of Buddha Dhamma is not a divine commandment laid down to force followers or to practice in a certain ways of blind faith, say of dogma. In Buddhism, morality is formulated according to natural principles of cause and effects, the law of karma, within which the practitioner must seize the system of interconnected relationship, even though he or she may not yet have a true realization, and only the faith factor, sattha. That faith must be rooted in understanding, akaraviti sattha, in which there is enough initial rational understanding to serve as the base for subsequent cultivation of wisdom and clear knowledge. The second point why morality path factors are presented in a negative form is considering the process of the Dhamma practice or self-development in terms of an increasingly refined, graduated system. It must begin with abandoning or limiting bad actions before proceeding on the perfection of the good, and thence ultimately to purify and liberation. It is like planting a garden. At first, the earth must be cleared, eliminated those things that are harmful, such as weed, rocks, and snails. Then the plant are sown and tended until they give the desired fruit. In the Buddhist system, morality is most elementary level of practice. It focuses on basic conduct, and therefore it emphasizes giving up various kinds of bad actions as the starting point. It reiterates and clarifies what must be eliminated. This is expanded on with higher levels of cultivating goodness through further practice in the progressively higher levels of samadhi and wisdom, so concentration and paññā. The third definition of morality path factors presented in the negative way is within the system of the Titso Sikha, the threefold training. Morality is not in itself the practice of reaching the ultimate objective, but is simply a means to reach the next level, which is samadhi, concentration. Concentration is therefore the immediate objective of morality. In this respect, the mental aspect of morality is important. The mental aspect of morality is the intention to refrain from or abstain from any thoughts to do a bad action of any kind which renders the mind pure and clear, untroubled by confusion or worry. Thus the mind is easily calmed and concentrated. When the mind is calm and concentrated, it's understood as samadhi. Fluency arises in the use of wisdom, rational thoughts, and for the search of more effective ways to create the good. The definition of morality path factors presented in the negative form, number 4, is Buddhism holds that the mind is of utmost importance. A system of conduct must therefore always involve an interaction between the mind and external expressions of action and speech, holding the mind to be the starting point. Intention is the mental principle of ensuring that the development of good actions proceed with assured sincerity. It is not simply not deceiving others, but also not deceiving oneself, eliminating the chances for mental problems arises from contradictions in conduct. The fifth definition of morality path factors presented in the negative form is the path factors of morality teaching us that the most fundamental level of personal responsibility towards oneself by ensuring that no thoughts of harming or exploiting others in the mind with the initial support of purity, responsibility expands outward to the level of maintaining and promoting growth on the personal virtue. By making an effort with good actions, the creating benefit of happiness for others. In short, it has the responsibility to oneself in giving up bad actions and have responsibility to others in doing good things for them. The sixth definition of morality path factors presented in the negative form is to define moral training as the abandoning of bad action is to give the practice the broadest possible scope by focusing on bad action and emphasizing an intention that harbors not even a trace of evil. As for goodness, it is something that can be expanded on indefinitely. Thus, it is not specified. And in fact, goodness is an indefinitely broad subject, its particulars and methods varying greatly according to place and time. The evil that must be refrained from is fixed and definite. For example, both the monastic order and the householders are required to give up lying, but the ways in which they can accomplish the virtues that is void of false speech are different. Thus, in establishing the principle, the abandoning of evil action is the standard. As for the particulars and methods of practice on the level of practicing goodness, these are practical affairs to be determined in conformity with the situation, time, and the way of life of each individual. The seventh definition of morality path factor presented it in a negative form. The practice of all factors of the path is considered essential for attaining Buddhist objective. Thus, each of the path factors must be a central principle that all people can practice, regardless of status, time, locality, or environment. Accordingly, we can see the direct relationship on the level of morality, sila. Refraining from stealing, for instance, is the practice that all people can observe, but the practice of generosity, dana, is dependent on other factors, such as having something to give, the presence of someone to receive, whether the receiver is worthy of receiving. In situations where there is not a position to give, an intention that is free from taking what is not given is equally, or given is a quality that purifies the mind and can form a foundation for concentration. In situations, however, where one is in a position to give, being disinterested or merely miserably will be a defilement of the mind, while giving is the condition for preserving or enhancing one's virtue. In this respect, the basic definition in the form of negation, abstaining from or being free from the bad, while expanding definitions in the form of developing goodness, and therefore is the matter of practical application as merely stated. Finally, the eighth definition of morality path factor presented it in a negative form is in the practice of Dhamma. At any particular time, the practitioner will practice one particular quality or a kind of quality. At such time, the practitioner's interests and attentions will be focused on what he or she is practicing at that time. In the case of responsibility to others, or the practice will be secondary. that is merely seeing it, that no kind of badness arises. The value of morality in this case is the protection of one's conduct in other areas, safeguarding it from going astray and falling into evil or some kind, thus ensuring a solid foundation from which to fully develop the particular kind of goodness being practiced at the same time. Now, since the natural order-based system for life development is systemized as morality, mind, and wisdom, Ditso Sika, scholars who are coming from a theistic kind of morality tend to be unable to make sense of it. A number of observations should be noted concerning the difference between morality in Buddhism, which is the natural base, and the morality in theistic religions, including the manner of karma, good and evil. Now I'm going to leave off on that today. So today we read page 503 to 512, and we left off here, and we'll pick up here again tomorrow. The Essentials of Buddha Dhamma, translated and edited by Bruce Evans, compiled by Somdit Prat Buddha Gosa Chaya, English name, P.A. Payuto.